You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, and co-host Keelan Harvey on Alternative Talk AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage experts Tina Mitchell and Keelan Harvey.
Welcome back to the Money Hour on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, April 27th show. I am your host, Tina Mitchell.
And I'm your co-host, Keelan Harvey.
We are here to help you build a strong financial blueprint 1 week and one show at a time. If you're hearing our show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but we're here to connect you with our guest and any suggested guests that you may have for a future show. Please feel free to call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. In studio right now, we have Michael Pollock of Northwest Premier Brokers and how to succeed as a seller in the current market. Michael, second time in studio. Very excited to have you back. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me again, Tina. I appreciate it.
And a little bit about Michael. Michael Pollock is managing broker and owner of Northwest Premier Brokers and has been in the real estate and mortgage business for over 14 years. In addition to being a real estate broker, Michael is also a licensed loan originator, providing him a unique perspective on the entire industry. Although he focuses on the metro area, Michael has assisted clients with home sales and purchases throughout Western Washington. It is Michael's passion to provide all of his clients, no matter their needs, goals, or property type, with superior representation, information, and expertise, and to make their real estate transaction a success from start to finish. He believes that being a successful real estate professional requires having a real relationship with his clients and treating them like family. That's why we've invited him here to our family at the Money Hour.
So, Michael, I'd be curious to get your feedback. We've heard, I don't want to call it confusion, but mixed reviews a little bit about what's kind of happening in the market and the season that we're in. Could you give us some feedback? What do you see that's happening currently in Seattle in the market?
Sure, that's a great question to be asking right now, especially as we came out of a real transition in 2018. There was a lot of concern coming into 2019 what we would see. And with the cold weather that we had in January and February, it really depressed sales and activity, and it greatly affected the market. But we saw a huge rebound in March with the most new listings coming on the market since all the way back in August of 2018. And pending sales also went up dramatically as well, got numbers that were just as high as back in July of 2018. So that was great to see the market really rebound. Mm-hmm. That was primarily due to pent-up activity from those winter holiday months and then the weather, and then also the reduction in mortgage rates, which, as you guys know, we saw some rates that were, some of the lowest that had been in a while, lower than we had throughout most of 2018. So I think that actually made a difference as well. So we're starting to see the start of the typical spring bounce that we see. And, that March really indicated, okay, here we're going to get going again for another good spring. And we are seeing a little bit of difference, though, between what we had going on last spring to this spring. Part of that is that, we're starting off with inventory that's substantially higher than what we were at last spring. Right now, King County's got about 2 months of inventory, which puts it pretty close to the balanced market, which is considered to be 2 to 4 months. So that's different than where we were at a year ago when it was substantially lower than that, much crazy, half of that amount of inventory. So that's going to change things both from a seller's perspective as well as a buyer's perspective. But the one thing that we are seeing is that the popular core neighborhoods in Seattle are still continuing to have really good market activity. There's properties that are coming on the market, they're priced attractively, and they're selling in the first week on market, in some cases with, contingencies waived. So, there's still that desirability for those properties. And because we do not have an oversupply of inventory at this point, the buyers who are in the market are seeing these properties that are really attractive and they're going after them right away. So that's a good thing that we want to see. We're getting to more of a healthy overall market for both buyers and sellers, which makes it a little bit easier for everybody to function in.
It is. And I think if you want to look at something, there's always an opportunity and a challenge in everything. But the challenge right now is just people understanding what's going on. And because, you just like you said, you can have one area is completely different than another area. And so you've got multiple offers and waiving finance contingency and some of that crazy stuff that was happening when that was happening everywhere, and other homes that are taking longer to sell and they've got one offer coming in. So it's a little bit more difficult. And that's why it's even more important that you have an expert real estate professional that can kind of help you navigate through that process. So Michael, what else have you seen changed in the Seattle market since earlier this year in 2018?
Really what we're seeing is that some of the areas along the I-5 corridor, Snohomish County, Pierce County are really where the highest levels of activity and the lowest amount of supply is right now. Mm-hmm. And part of that comes back to the affordability question. Part of the reason why there was a little bit of a slowdown in the Seattle market last year, particularly the city of Seattle, is just because the price points reached a point that people kind of held back a little bit. The inventory exploded at the same time. And people just kind of said, well, you know what? When you couple the prices along with the traffic and everything you have to deal with in the city of Seattle, maybe I'm better off looking outside of town. So we saw a dramatic increase in the activity levels along the I-5 corridor. And that's really kind of definitely showing up again in this spring. There in Pierce County, you've got about 1 month of inventory going on right now. So that's what's really kind of changed. And we're going to see that expected coming into this whole spring. We should likely get an increase in new listings, but also an increase in the pending activity and the amount of buyers that are out there in the market. So I really think that 2019 is going to be indicative of where we go for the next couple of years, because we've kind of come out of this real seller's market into a more balanced market. Mm-hmm. And we'll see if that maintains that way coming into 2019, as we are hoping it does.
That's interesting you say that, because I've seen that as well. It seems like everybody's choosing to go north because, right, you go north, east, south, or west of the lake. And right now it seems like north, that little triangle there, the Briar, Shoreline, Linwood,
Bothell,
even Bothell, all that area.
Oh, yeah, Bothell's hot.
Blowing up right now.
Yeah.
It's not to say it hasn't been for the past couple of years. It's just now it's really doing so because people are looking at it and saying, well, I can commute a little ways, and what I can get for my money is substantially better than I can get inside the city of Seattle or Bellevue. And
then all the improvements they're doing in Bothell, too. It's just,
And Bellevue's blowing up, too, between Facebook and REI and, Amazon, all these companies that are coming over here. And people are just choosing to make longer commutes. I can't believe some of the commutes that some of my clients are just like, no big deal. I'll drive an hour. And I'm just like, wow, I wouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
But, to each their own.
Mine are willing to walk 2 steps, and that's about it.
Yeah, I've got both friends and clients that are willing to take the train every day, commuting an hour and a half to be able to have the opportunity to own a new construction property that's maybe priced in the 5s and 6s versus the 1 million range.
Yeah, and if you could do that, what an actually a beautiful thing, because you have to work, you're doing things on your laptop, so why not have the first hour and a half of your day on the train? Right. I would do it. I'm just in and out so much I can't.
And how beautiful is Seattle? Like those outside areas, you don't feel like you're anywhere near a city, and all of a sudden you're shooting into this huge metropolis, right? And there's just a great feeling. All the green and that feeling you get outside in some of those areas is really neat.
Yeah, it's really fun for me when I have new clients coming in from out of town that haven't already lived here, and showing them around town. And then when you get outside of the city and showing them what they can get or what the environment is like in these communities outside of the city, how quickly you can be into areas that are, much more green space than what you would get inside the downtown core.
Yeah. So if you're right in Seattle, what are the hottest spots right now?
So the hottest spots in Seattle continue to be the high popularity neighborhoods, Queen Anne, Green Lake, Finney Ridge, these areas that are going to be also close to commuting and transit options as well. But these are the areas that historically have always been high popularity. Now, over the years, things have kind of changed and evolved, and new areas have been added in, such as Ballard, which, go back maybe 10 years, Ballard was not a high popularity area. Now it's one of the most popular areas. Part of it is because there's been so much growth there and, new restaurants, shops, and things to do there. But that's something that's going to continue to evolve over time, is other areas will come into play as being high popularity areas while the traditional ones still maintain their status.
It's kind of freaking me out to see this transit come to fruition too. You're actually seeing it like up in Northgate, like this huge and the 90 floating bridge. Like, it was always this idea that floated around forever, but you're really seeing it come to a point now that it's going to happen. So, what about the expectations for the market in Seattle as we get kind of closer and into spring? What are your thoughts there?
Well, we're expecting that, as long as interest rates don't spike up, the market should continue to improve overall for everybody. That we're going to see a slower gain in prices, primarily due to the fact that the inventory has reached this new point that it was at. And that's going to allow us to be a better market for everybody to be both a buyer and a seller in, is that you as a buyer may not have as much competition that you're facing. You as a seller can do things that you probably couldn't have done in the last couple of years, such as go out and make a contingent offer, which nobody could have even really gotten away with one of those over the past couple of years. So really that's the expectation and hope as we enter the next 2019, that things are going to open up for both parties.
So for the sellers that are listening to the show today, what advice do you have for them, Michael?
So really your first step is, determine what your goals are. And, if you're considering selling, sit down, talk with your spouse if you have one, and figure out what it is that your desires are. Then set up a time to meet with a real estate broker to discuss that and figure out what their professional input would be about how to achieve those goals. Like I said, with this balanced market, it's going to present a good opportunity to be both a seller and a buyer. And so that's really going to provide you with some opportunities that didn't exist in the last couple of years. And I'm seeing that with some of my clients that I've been working with and in contact with for a couple of years, but they weren't ready to list because of that they said, you know what, we can't go out and try and make an offer on a home because, what
there
are we
are no
do?
homes.
Yeah, we can't make a contingent offer on a place. So why do we even bother? And some of those people are they're actively out now looking at properties with me. So that's a welcome change.
Yeah.
Really, the first step is sitting down and creating those goals, meeting with a broker to go over them, and also looking at market analysis for your property. A lot of times sellers will just quickly take a look online and get some automated number for their property, and that's, as we know, quite inaccurate. So it's important to sit down with a professional who can evaluate all the aspects, what's sold recently nearby you, but also if you were to enter the market, what potential competition would you face? Now, that's the other piece of the valuation puzzle, is not just looking at what's sold, but where you would come in the market if you did come on the market.
So, Michael, specifically, what's critical for sellers sellers need to know in order to be successful in the market?
Really, to be successful in this current market, you have to get together a comprehensive and specific marketing plan for your property that's designed by the professional, and you couple that with a focus on what I call the 3 Ps of real estate. Those 3 Ps are price, photos, and product.
Nice.
So price, having an effective and smart list price is essential. We're no longer in a market that allows sellers just to, test the upper limits and see what happens. That's just being rejected by buyers. If your list price is effective, you're going to see it with the activity you get. You're going to see it with getting offers in the first week or two on market. So the second P, photos. Having high quality professional photographs of your home is an essential. We know that 90% of buyers start their searching online. That's the first thing that they're looking through is those photos. And all too often I see photos online that are obviously done on somebody's phone that doesn't have a good quality photo, and it doesn't help the property out at all. It doesn't show off everything it can. So it's essential that any broker you're working with has a professional photographer that they utilize to get photos that will show your home in the best light, because really that's the decision maker for a lot of people. They're going to go click through 20 photos and decide whether or not they're interested or not to go look at the property in person. And they may stop right there. You could have a great price, but if the photos aren't helping you, then you've missed out on one of those things that you need to have. So the third P is having an attractive product is also essential in this market. With the higher inventory that we now have, the buyers have become more selective. So they're going to only really go after properties that have attractive elements to them. And that could mean they're in an attractive neighborhood or a high-value neighborhood, or it could mean that it's got an updated design. It could have a open concept layout, a big backyard. There's got to be some element of the product itself that's going to
Can shine.
bring in the buyer and attract them to the property.
Yeah.
So the marketing plan needs to focus on that. It needs to have the photos, and it needs to have an effective list price. If you don't have all 3 of these combined together, you can spend as much as you want on advertising, marketing dollars, and it's still not going to matter because those things are really what makes a difference in a property sale.
Yeah. And, such great advice. I mean, whether you're working with your agent on the buy side or the sell side, we've got, two amazing, awesome real estate agents in studio today. And you need to have that expert advice to help you strategize around either side of that process. So, Michael, thank you so much for coming back in studio. It was great to have you here.
Thank you for having me again, Tina.
Coming up next on The Money Hour, real estate contract breaches and earnest money disputes. We have Hamilton Gardner of HomeQuest, Gardner PLLC, right here at 1150 a.m. KKNW after the short break.